So with this up, and before I go to the grading plan, I just want to sort of reiterate some of the goals and some of the, I guess you would say, findings and complications and things that we have discovered. You know, obviously this is a gateway to Branford from Guilford and areas that are obviously to the east of us, of this site. No one has ever looked at the infrastructure needs, the development possibilities, the impact of wetlands, the land as one. So when combined, it's 135 acres. We, again, would be doing it under PDD, and we would be respectful as much as possible of the underlying zoning when performing our calculations in terms of coverage and so on and so forth. As I said, it's approximately 135 acres. There's 35 acres of wetlands on the site. There's approximately 12 acres of steep slopes. There's approximately 41 acres of regulated area, the upland regulated area. So therefore, if you just combine what I just said, approximately 65% of the site is either steep slopes, wetlands, or in this upland review area. So, as you can see, this is potentially a huge tax generator for the town, and is certainly a piece of land that was zoned to be used. And some of the uses that we show on here is actually permitted in this zone. But you have to look at this from a third dimension, and I think we're one of the first people for the developers who are here in the audience and property owners that are really studying this conceptually for the first time with a cohesive master plan. And so with that, I really appreciate the time of this commission, because we really are looking for some input and an understanding of how we can accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, if we can accomplish it. So therefore, like I was saying, technically the total area of this site that's out of the regulated, upland review area is approximately 48 acres. And what we are proposing right now is that the bulk of our wetland impact, or wetland filling, 4 of the impacts have to do with physically getting into the site. Okay, so the previously extended and dedicated rights of way for the Sycamore Way will require a wetland impact or a crossing, potentially the use of structures to minimize the impact. Likewise, East Industrial Drive. So anything that would go on this site would require this, and up in this area, much like the other plan, we were able to stay out of the wetlands. But then to get up into this other zone, and again, we're talking about 135 acres here, there is a need for 2 other crossings. And our desire and our plan, as you can see, has painfully drawn roads in a manner where we've always come to the smallest pinch point on the wetlands crossing. We can control ourselves here. Again, we really can't control these 2 points here. The third impact, the 5th impact outside of the 4 crossings is the impact that this user and this development plate needs and requires for this lower area of the development. And what we're looking at is a total wetland filling of approximately 2.3 acres, and which equates to approximately 1.5% of the site. Okay, so you could see with the size of this development and what we're proposing, Ray, if we can just go to the next plan. Um, we needed to come have this discussion. Unlike some developers who come before, and I've been, representing some of those developers over the year, where they just have options on the land. There's Brantford businessmen and residents that own this land outright, and they're taxpayers today, and are looking to do something on this land. So, to just go into the third dimension a bit, we essentially would have a public street that started here, and we're going to work on the name. The word bittersweet is a little sort of, I guess you would say, not a kind name if you want to look at it one way or another. But Sycamore Way would be a public street, Bittersweet Boulevard would come through and tie into Route 1. And the tie-in point here, just for example, the high point of Route 1 is in this area. This is around 165. An extension of the existing grade of Sycamore brings you down to approximately the gradient of 98 in this area. And the extension of the 5.5% to 6% grade on East Industrial, again, trying to get the crossing as low as possible, gets you down to approximately, again, 98 in this location. The highway is at an elevation that has a low point of approximately 73, and the low point is in this area. There are two distinct areas where culverts go under the highway. One is right here, and the other one is further up here. Now, there is a 500-year, it's a light zone A, it's a light line that comes up through here, through this area, 500-year flood delineation. And a lot of that has to do with what the culverts are doing to the water that's coming through here, certainly backing up the water. Fortunately for this site, there's a natural ridge line through here, so the watershed that actually moves through this site is not that grand beyond the site property lines. What you see here and what's feeding a lot of these wetlands is there's a lot of seeps, there's a lot of springs, there's a big grade change out here, so that's what is causing a lot of it. And then, of course, the I-95 filling, in the 50s, certainly backed up some of the water and has caused some, I'm sure, increase of wetlands down in the lower area. But nonetheless, we would start in, this elevation is 165. For example, the elevation of this building would be about 170. This series of building would be in the range of 159 to 162. This series of building is, this one here, this section of building is around 136. We go down to 120, down to 110. So we would be stepping these buildings down the slope. This zone here would be around 105. This area would be around 95, and the buildings up in here are around 105. So there is a real effort to minimize and work with the grades that are surrounding us so that we can sort of move both two-dimensionally and three-dimensionally across the site and minimize our impact. As an illustration here, what I'm showing is the wetland line as it exists today, and I'm showing a 25-foot snapshot of what we were trying to respect in terms of a no-activity zone as much as possible. When you go back to the other plan, again, I talked about 135 acres, and you find that there's only 30% of this plan or 35% of this plan that technically falls out of your purview, it makes it difficult to understand how you could ever develop anything on this and do no activity within 100 feet of the wetlands. I'm not saying that's something that you need to accept, but I'm saying that it's a true challenge to this site. And so we certainly didn't disguise that line on this map here, but it really makes no sense to have that line here. We're just trying to highlight that we're trying to respect a 25-foot no buffer zone, no activity zone. Now, one of the things that we're going to write in the regulations is that today, both at a wetland crossing as well as just general grading, the current regulations are up for, as you know, there's an upcoming meeting, workshop meeting again, for some modifications.
Talking about planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning regulations. And I'm only mentioning this, Dan, because of their impact to grading and to the wetlands. And one of the things is their retaining wall section, the earthwork section. So one of the things we would be doing on this site in our PDD is proposing language that would allow a earth slope, if engineered, to act as a potential tool for grading. And to give an example, this earth slope is basically a Sierra-scape facing, and where this was most recently used quite successfully above wetlands and above residences actually, is when my firm worked on the Big Y on Route 80 in North Branford. The Revezzis owned the farm, but they were also neighbors and friends to all the people that lived around them for years. And the people that lived in the neighborhood were not interested in staring at a tall retaining wall. So they asked us to look into different products. And so if you go out there today, the side of the site, the left side that supports the TD Bank and the left side of the Big Y is in approximately a 30-foot fill, while the upper side was in a 30-foot cut, and that side is supported by this vegetated slope. What that allows us to do is it allows us to minimize and tighten our impact on grading, and certainly minimize the amount of horizontal land that is used for grading. So that's one of the things, and that is shown on our plan in many locations as two line. It's a very light hatch, and you don't get to see it on that. But other than this issue, or the issue of the PDD, the use of the PDD, there is no other zoning type issue that we're not going to be in compliance with. We are less than 60% impervious coverage. We are well under our building coverage. And the last plan is an artistic rendering of the development you saw with a darker shade and sort of a bluish line depicting where, you know, the existing little creeks and little water courses, fingers are on site. Sometimes they're dry, but in November when we saw them, there was actually some running water in some of the lower areas here. The red is our bound, and the yellow line is the town line. And with that, Dan, I probably took up more time than, you know, a workshop or, you know, a non-application should, but it's a big site, and we have been working closely over the last year with some staff on some planning elements of our job, but we needed to get to the point where we were doing a real survey, doing some real grading, doing some real checks and balances of what the site can support or can't support. The goal of this site would be to move earth in a way in excess of 500,000 cubic yards of material, but that it would be moving from point A to B and never have to either bring in material or export material. And that's one of the advantages of working on such a big property. We're going to be able to balance our fill and cuts in that manner. So with that, I'm just looking for some, kind of feedback, reaction.